Hey everybody, Rob Nelson here. I'm on the UNC Chapel Hill campus because I'm getting ready to give a talk today about communication. In particular, because I have a science background, talking to scientists about science communication. But I think you guys might enjoy this very short 10-minute talk because you can interchange science communication with whatever field you're talking about. Anyways, it's short, thought you might enjoy it. Here's the talk. Maybe this one's
all the buttons now.
I spent 4 years studying communication, by the way. Today I'm talking about communication. Specifically about science communication. I mean, we're here at a climate change talk, and I feel like one of the biggest things is we got to communicate to the public, right, about climate change. Nobody in here, I'm sure, is a climate denier, but there's a lot of people out there that are. The truth is we need more science communication, and not just more people like me, but I think all of you who are out there who study science, we got to have more people getting out there and getting the message out. You know, now I make videos, both online, on social media, in textbooks, on TV. But I started as a scientist, crunching data for about 5 years right after grad school. I was studying fish. Part of my research entailed taking remote video cameras, doing the research, and then communicating that to the rest of the public. And what I found was that taking these video materials and showing them to people was what they responded to the most. And so I kind of got addicted to it, and I really specialized in my career in doing that. Of course, that's when I met Diego studying science filmmaking up in Montana. But what I realized is that all the other scientists that were around me maybe didn't value the video communication that I was doing so much. So think to yourself, what should a scientist be doing? For those of you who are scientists, think what your colleagues should be doing. If you say studying the world around you and then communicating it to others, that's probably what we should all be saying at some level. But what I've found is that the answer is always this. You write grants, you do research, and you publish. And publication never is in the form of a video, right? It's always in peer-reviewed journal articles, and I see great value in that, don't get me wrong. But the truth is, you know, if we're going to speak to an audience about what we're finding, you know, the audience needs to be more than just fellow scientists. So over on the far left over here are scientists. They'll read your stuff in peer-reviewed journal articles. But then you got here in the middle, that's the public. A lot of the public view things online, so you can disseminate your material in a palatable way to them. And then I separate from the public over here on this side, politicians, because I think it's really important sometimes to communicate just to them. Even though you might do it the same way you do the public, influencing one politician can make a huge change, and I'll show you some of that later. Essentially what I'm trying to say in this very short talk, I usually give a lot longer talks, is that videos are important. Because I like to do what I preach in my presentations, I am going to show a video today. I want all of you to take home the fact that you could do this too. This is a video blog. I'm holding the camera in front of me and talking about something that I've thought a little bit about. And so think about that as you're watching this. Jonas and I are going on this little kayak trip. Here's a question for you. Do we as documentary filmmakers have a responsibility to tell the truth? Of course, you might think, of course, that's a silly question. I don't think it's as simple as you're either friggin' lying or you're telling the truth when you're doing a documentary, because there's lots of lines in between. I like to look at it something like this. The whole gradient from super factual all the way to you just made up stuff, and things fall in between. You ready?
I think I am. Finally.
Are you stressed?
I was stressed.
The reason for me wanting to talk about this is we went to a conference and a panel stood up in front of us. It was composed of people from all the different networks, and they asked the same question, do we have a responsibility to tell the truth, teach people science? And everybody more or less said, yeah, it's part of our mission, until the representative from Discovery Channel stood up and said, no, we want to make what people want to watch. And this is what they showed.
Aliens and the military. The list of global threats to the human race is long. But could Earth's armed forces be facing a new enemy that is literally out of this world?
We have only to open our eyes to see how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
To me, the most interesting thing about that clip is that while it didn't lie and say there were aliens, it raised a bunch of questions that basically made it sound like there could be aliens. So in my mind, while it's not lying, it falls somewhere in the middle, and that might be just not giving the full truth. And of course, all of us in the stands, we're science communicators. Our whole role is to try to tell people the truth, to try to communicate science as best we can, and I feel that maybe these documentaries are hurting the public by making people believe that maybe some of these things exist when they don't.
Actually, I don't want to sound weak. My back is totally fine.
Time for lunch. I'm gonna present a couple of the popular shows that have come out recently, just to get you to think where it might fall along the scale. But first, we gotta jump in.
We gotta
Oh, I'm going numb though now.
This is Ulva.
I like this first show. It's appropriate for what we're doing right at the moment. Mermaids, body found.
Oh my God! What is that?
Did you get that shot?
Oh my God!
In 2004, two boys were the first to arrive on a mass whale beaching in Washington State. They captured it on a cell phone. The boys claim they saw something that day. They claim they saw a body.
So clearly, Mermaids is a fake documentary. I mean, most people probably know that mermaids don't exist. But, according to the lady from NOAA that I talked to, she said they got a flood of phone calls from people wanting to know if mermaids do actually exist. I don't know where the public would get that idea. I mean, it was an interesting documentary, but it definitely doesn't lie on the completely terrible lie end of the scale. Oh, look at this. I gotta do a quick time lapse, hold on. Now take the documentary Voodoo Sharks, a little show on Shark Week by Discovery Channel that went around trying to claim that there could be this mysterious large shark lurking through the waters in kind of Louisiana area attacking people. Well, anyways, they found this shark biologist to interview.
Jonathan Davis and his team of scientists arrive at their first destination, the brackish waters of the Gulf of Mexico, just outside of Lake Bourne. They believe that if there is a monster shark entering Lake Pontchartrain, it would likely be sticking to this area, where the salty waters of the Gulf meet the fresh waters just outside of New Orleans.
Sharks are pretty amazing creatures. All of them have been found in weird places, so I'm not 100% certain that it would happen, but it could happen.
The problem was he didn't know he was being interviewed for that show, and this is what he had to say about it. I asked a few of the crew members, including the producer, what the show was going to be about. I never got a straight answer, and the producer seemed to avoid the question. I was just told it would be combined with some other filming to make one show about Louisiana shark research. Personally, I think this is probably the worst thing that you could do, basically using a biologist that didn't want his interview cut that way and cutting it up like that. It's not a full lie, it was basically using stuff that was said, twisting the facts around a little bit though, so I would place it far on the scale of towards a lie. For me, over the edge. I don't know. That show was in tandem with another show called Megalodon.
Talking about a giant shark. That thing is enormous. If the shark that's in the Nazi U-boat photo is in fact the same shark that's in the shark eye photo that was taken just after the boat attack, then that means there's been a 50-ton monster in these waters for over 70 years.
And Drake is running out of time to find it.
It's very obvious that some of the networks are testing our sliding scale, trying to figure out what we're willing to accept in a documentary. They say that's what we want, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think that the whole way of doing the ratings might be flawed. Last night I was sick all night. The reason I think the whole system is flawed is that if you take some of those shows that do well in the Nielsen ratings and you put them online, then they don't do as well. And people give them a lot of thumbs down. I think that might be a better indicator of whether people like the show or not. So I wonder what the end result of all this is. Do we doubt the credibility of all shows that are saying they're giving us facts?
These are facts.
Or does it just make us doubt the credibility of those shows that are messing up their own credibility? So then what do we do as the scientists, as the filmmakers, as those that are making these films? Probably could never go as far as having a boycott. It just wouldn't work. I'm gonna bring this back to myself. I'm a host, I tell stories, I do science on TV. I've worked with almost all of the networks right at the moment, but it's not as easy as you might think to decide who you work with, because when you pitch a story, you pitch it to everyone. Whoever decides they like your story and is willing to fund a project, then that's who you go with. So it's not so simple. But what I'd like to do, I'd like to ask you all now what you think the solution is. Gosh, it's so windy. So Sorry about that. Where on this sliding scale do we cross the line? Obviously, when you're telling a story, I think it's okay to add a little bit of drama, as long as it's not too much. I mean, you take River Monsters, they do a pretty good job with that. But we as filmmakers, we as scientists, we people in the networks need to be held accountable for their actions. Lying is not okay, obviously. But this is a question for you all. That's why I think we need to take back science communication, because right now it's the networks who are deciding what they think everybody wants to watch. It shouldn't be that way. Let me give you 2 quick examples about why I think it's also very important and highly effective. First of all, I studied in Hawaii. I want to keep as much biodiversity in the Northwest Hawaiian Islands as I can. I didn't want it to get overfished. Well, Jean-Michel Cousteau came to the islands, did a documentary. He then showed it to the then President George Bush in 2005. And because George Bush was so inspired in part by that documentary, he signed into legislation with one single stroke of the pen the largest national marine sanctuary ever in the US, basically making the whole Northwest Hawaiian Islands protected. So here's a case of somebody making something, a video, that was very powerful, getting together other people who believed in the idea, approaching a politician, and then that person can make a big difference. Second quick example is that I worked with Michelle Trotwine. She had a project called Arthropods in the Home. I said, hey, let's do a little short 3-minute video together. We made that short. It was made for the public, translating her work into something we called Bugs in the Home. It was then picked up by the BBC, National Geographic, PBS Digital Studios, Discovery News, and a whole slew of other online people who wanted to get that news out. And they got the science right. The point is, science communication is really important. You don't, as a scientist, have to do it yourself. I think you should put high priority into science communication, but at least team up with people who are doing it as well, because it'll be good not only for your work, but for the field that you're studying as well. That's all I have. Thanks.
Probably not what you want to do.